All right. I will stream to my audience as well. Hopefully this works.
All right, we are live. Hello, everybody, in who are watching us live. We will just welcome everybody from all over the world. And thanks again. This was kind of a short notice, especially for Mike and Brian, and who are watching us as well. So, Mike, Brian, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks so much for having us.
Hello, hello.
So yeah, this is very exciting for me personally because I have been following your work for quite some time, and I'm sure a lot of people watching in the stream are also in the same boat, and wanted to know more about you, see where things are going. But obviously, we'll get to that. We have a brief introduction which we have written about you. So Mike is a WordPress veteran with 15 plus years of experience, known for creating array themes, atomic blocks, which was later acquired by WP Engine. He's now the co-founder of OllieWP, design first block theme and pattern library, which simplifies site creation. And we also have Brian on the webinar. He's a WordPress pioneer, best known for co-creating Genesis framework and founding Studio Press, which was also later acquired by WP Engine. So that's something very common between you.
Hmm.
He leads Frost WP, which is, I think, became really viral, similar to what Ollie WP had the trajectory, and now also working on the Powder theme, which is a modern WordPress theme focused on full site editing and cutting edge design. So I hope I was able to capture some part of it, but I would definitely open up the conversation to get to know more about you guys, a little bit of history. So Brian, let's get started with you. Means how did you end up in WordPress and where did you start? Like a brief history.
Yeah, I'll do the abbreviated story. I've told this probably hundreds of times all over the 20 almost years it's been, which is blowing my mind as I approach that milestone. So about 20 years ago, I was a project manager at an architectural firm. I was by far the youngest one there. And so I became sort of the de facto internet guy because everybody else was an old sales guy or old project manager and they didn't know what computers were all about. And so I, from Excel to all of those things, I was the guy who sort of was a designated internet person. So while I was there, I was also blogging. I was a new dad and I wanted to write about my experiences. And so I just kind of Googled, how to blog and all of that, got set up with Blogger, started writing on Blogger, and somebody I came across that I should look into WordPress. So I looked into WordPress and I was like, wow, this is a little bit harder than just clicking a couple buttons and getting a free account. And so, but for some reason, I kind of like the challenge. I'm like, well, let me see if I can figure this out, because that's sort of how I operated at the company. It was just, how do I figure this out so I could teach everybody there how to do a thing on the computer? So while I was doing that, I realized I enjoyed WordPress. Wasn't a fan of any of the free themes that were available back then. And so I started playing around with custom CSS and changing things. And I found very much freedom in that and got a theme to a point where I was like, okay, this is now my theme and I like the way this looks. And so I started blogging about that experience. And then from there, I started doing freelance gigs and I created a real estate blog theme for somebody who did not want what I presented to him. And so at the time, I didn't know anything other than to go online and say, would anybody buy this? And then when I got hundreds of comments from people saying, yes, I would buy this, then my follow-up was, how much would you pay? And so they told me how much they would pay. And then I started selling WordPress themes, and first month was $10,000 in sales. Then it was 20, 40, and then 80. And at that point, I realized it was time to quit my job and go full steam. So that is the fun accidental story of how I became a WordPress person.
And is that like the Genesis framework or?
Nope, that was the Revolution theme. It had a couple of different offshoots of it before it then caused us to rebrand to Studio Press. Cease and desist letters tend to do that to you. So we rebranded as Studio Press, and sort of shortly thereafter, it was when Nathan Royce and I sort of put our heads together and created Genesis.
Awesome. Awesome. So, do you remember what WordPress version was that when you started?
2 point something maybe. It was very old.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you started WordPress as soon as WordPress started, right? Or almost same age,
Almost
right?
probably a year or two after it started, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that was very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Brian.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, I started a little bit after that. It was early days, but it was more formed than probably when Brian was playing around with it. But I got into it, I think, the same way a lot of people did. I was building client sites back then, and just had my own little freelance business, designing and building websites. And we were still just writing HTML websites back then, and sometimes a little PHP, but mostly just static websites. And then I found out about WordPress that was just popping off in the web world. And once I figured out what it was and understood that you could manage all of your pages in here, and you could build dynamic stuff, and you could do templating, and the fact that I could then, eventually I figured out that you could, like Brian did, it was like kind of a aha moment. It was like, wait a second, I don't have to just sell these designs to clients. I could take this design and sell it to 500 clients or 5,000 clients. And that was a huge moment for me, just because, as a designer like Brian, like being able to design something and have it kind of propagate out through the internet is such a cool thing. WordPress is such a cool delivery mechanism for design. So that was a huge moment. And so at the time, Brian had kind of paved the way in kind of helping the premium market take off. And so I think I joined shortly after that. I started tinkering with it. And then, I started just making premium themes. I was on some of the early marketplaces like ThemeForest and Envato, and eventually I was on WordPress.com and things like that. So, and then from there, like you said in the bio, it just kind of snowballed, and I've been doing themes or theme adjacent things ever since. And so here we are, still here.
Yeah. So when you started, did you you were a designer first or like a full stack person?
No, I was a designer. I've always been a designer, even though I code a lot, and now I even code more, and I can write React and all these other things. The kind of the backbone of my career has always been design, and that's how I've kind of been able to differentiate myself and create these kind of design focused businesses while building the stuff around them.
Awesome. That's interesting. And did you guys know each other back then?
Not that early.
Trying to think of how far back we go. It probably it must predate your work at Array. But I remember we met, I think, for the first time at WordCamp Chicago, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. I can't remember how long it's been now, but
but we were definitely familiar with each other, I think, quite a few years before that, because I think we had a lot of mutual acquaintances like Jason Schuller and a lot of those people who were doing stuff.
So Adam Pickering is on the comments, and
nice.
He says the first paid theme. So the question is, what were the biggest challenges you faced when designing and selling a premium WordPress theme in an era dominated by free themes? Then he goes on saying that the first paid theme, is that the first paying theme was from you, Brian?
I think so. I could be proven wrong, but from what I know,
we have the living legend on webinar.
As far as I know, it is.
I don't know about living legend. Living, yes. Legend, probably not. But I it's been 18 years. I think I recall that I was the first one there, but maybe somebody was doing something before me that nobody knew about. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the names Jason Sculler and are they did you work with them?
Jason and I had done some togetherness at one point with Revolution. We actually launched a thing called Revolution 2, where we came together and we both put together designs. So we had a partnership for some time, and we've worked on some other things together. And I know, Mike, you've had some togetherness with Jason as well. Jason's an OG. Theme Garden, I believe, Press 75 were his projects back in the day. Also, between him and Mike and Rafal, I feel like those are the guys that are the design OGs. I just happened to get lucky with something that was not really well designed, to be perfectly honest.
The design followed, though.
Awesome.
Yes. Somehow I learned that, or at least learned to love it.
We have another one coming for Mike. The only theme I ever paid was Aaron, and the second will be Ollie. So that's an amazing kudos for you, Mike.
Nice.
I think we have set the stage for themes, design, and WordPress. I think that's what our topic is all about today as well. So, and we wanted to keep it like very, very focused. And this was an amazing suggestion from Brian that let's just talk about patterns and the power of patterns. And so fast forward to 2024 and beyond, WordPress has changed a lot, of course, when you started custom theme and now block editor, Gutenberg, and all of that. So let's just shift a little bit of some gears and go towards the topic of today. Why do you think? Okay, so before we get into the patterns, the evolution of block editor in the last 4 or 5 years, and its impact of WordPress adoption. What is your feeling about that? And based on data, right? So you have seen a lot of data as well while selling your recent themes and while working with other creators. So what do you feel about that?
Mike, I'll let you go first.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think this was always going to be a very difficult transition for WordPress. It's unprecedented. WordPress runs almost 1 billion websites, and if people just can't wrap their head around the number 1 billion, as much as it is prevalent as it is in our cultures these days, it runs 1 billion websites, and all of those websites are drastically different. They're on different tech stacks. They're used for different things. They have marketplaces running out. They have blogs. They have e-commerce as everything. So to take WordPress as it was and transform it into a block editor era, even if you just did the block editor alone and didn't do full site editing, is very difficult to do. And then put on top of that, you had the full site editor where we're taking it even further and we're saying we're going to change the entire way you do WordPress now. I think it's been a very huge challenge. And even despite the bumps along the way, and still today, there are still some rough edges, I think it's been an incredible transition into this new era. And people are still figuring it out. And Brian and myself and a lot of others are doing the best we can to help shepherd this new era of WordPress here, because whether people like it or not, WordPress just bought itself another 10 years, in my opinion. It's here. It's here to stay. And this transition was necessary for that. And so it's on all of us to kind of do what we can to make it better, build products for it, bring people in, educate. And I think we're doing a great job of this new era.
So you were saying, basically, does that also mean that WordPress needed to be more than a blog authoring platform by default? Because the plugins and the plugin ecosystem is already there for building websites. But in the core, okay. So that
I do believe so, and I think it still needs to even evolve a little further, because although we have all of this new stuff, full site editing and page editing and all that stuff, it still feels almost like blog first, or at least that's still how some people talk about it. And so I feel like we're still transitioning away from that, because if you look at other builders like Webflow and Framer and all these cool ones, they do not present themselves as blogs, or even they don't even talk about blogs at all. It's all about building.
They actually fail at blog a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. So I think we have a lot of work to do to get away from that and then help people see us as more than that.
Brian, do you have something to add?
Yeah, this is probably the best way I explain like sort of where I'm at with the block editor and full site editing and whatever we're calling all of this here was so 6.5 years ago we sold StudioPress to WP Engine. kind of joke now is like I sold it to us, right? Because I'm now at WP Engine, so it's kind of fun to say it that way.
Did you get hired as well when you sold it?
I had the opportunity to. I chose not to because I wanted to kind of do my own thing for a while. I had
Okay.
been doing WordPress for so long. Our partner team at
So
Copyblogger.
you did not immediately join WP Engine after the sale?
Right. Yeah, I did not
Okay.
join. I stayed on as a contractor for 6 months, sort of to help transition away. And then I sort of did my own thing for a while. So I was on my own for about a year and a half. And then and the reason we sold Studio Press and Genesis was I just didn't know where, because Matt had just talked about 5.0 and Gutenberg and all this other stuff. And I was like, I don't know where this is all going. We as a partner team, we were sort of getting just fried. And we were like, unless we're going to commit like hardcore to like evolving into this new wave of WordPress, I told our partners, I'm like, I just think we should sell it at this point. Let's try to sell high before anything changes. And so we did. And then like about a year into it, as Gutenberg evolved, I was like, hang on a second. I'm like, I started to sort of really dig into what it was and where it was going. And I saw the vision, and it really reminded me sort of back in the day when we created Genesis, because we had a framework with Genesis, a PHP framework that did hooks and filters and moved things around. And we essentially used child themes to sort of serve as the visual display of it all. When I saw sort of the evolution of Gutenberg, I'm like, this feels like that all over again, with the exception of the framework now is WordPress itself, which sort of removes a little bit of this sort of inception of
that was your own kind of little framework which you made.
Yeah. And so, so I started playing around with full site editing themes. The first thing I did was called Frost. And I was really excited about this. I was like, well, I really, as a visual guy like Mike, I'm like, I really feel like, we have the power now to build these things. And this is almost when patterns were before they were called patterns. The idea of like grouping some things and inserting sections of a website allowed me to envision a way of building with WordPress that had never been built before, right? Because we had done custom functions and widget areas and all these things that sort of felt hacky, especially when you wanted to rinse and repeat sections. And so I really bought into where that was going. And so I continued my theme called Frost. I reached out to Heather Bruner, our CEO, and I was like, hey, look, do you know anybody who might be hiring? Because like I'm really still into the WordPress thing. And so they had a position here for me at WP Engine. And so I joined on. We brought Frost over as sort of an experimental and educational theme. And when I realized, as Mike may have, that we weren't going to go the full 9 yards with product at WP Engine at the time, I started creating my own theme called Powder, because I wanted to really like move the needle and innovate and do things that would inspire. So I'm not sure which one of us is more bullish on the future of WordPress and patterns between Mike and I feel like sometimes it's me and sometimes it's him, and throw in some Rich Tabor, and I think we've got it covered. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, I think we have our own Avengers team, right? So it's working towards that goal, and because when it started, so we also invested something. So we have a plugin and theme company as well, and we have a brand under that called Gutena. So we created. So my vision was to create blocks which were not in the core. So forms, accordion, and things like that. Basically a block library. And we saw amazing adoption for only the form plugins, and none of the other blocks work out. And then we sold so few of the premium versions of it, mainly because of our marketing, probably. But I think that was 2 years ago. And now, in hindsight, it's like, I think the investment can be made truly in this space. A lot of people were hesitant when it started, and I was full on bullish on that on Twitter and internally as well. But I think that whoever started early on, I think the efforts are paying now. So let's see how it goes.
We need to make sure we spend a few minutes talking about Mike's innovation back in the day, because he was maybe the first to kind of come together with the idea of a block library that complemented what WordPress was doing with his atomic blocks. So I'm going to jump in, if you don't mind, and kind of host for a second and ask Mike the question, like, what was the impetus? What was the impetus for atomic blocks, and what did you see at the time? And then obviously things changed because of the acquisition, and WordPress essentially cannibalized some of the stuff that block libraries were doing. But I'd love to hear just even more about that myself.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of people, by the time the block editor was had been announced and introduced, the WordPress was kind of stagnating. I mean, we had all been doing the same thing the same way for 15, 20 years. And I, for the longest time, I didn't, the kind of themes I was making were just like super neat, clean core themes. They were not page builder themes. They were not anything. They were just like very straight to core kind of themes. And I always wanted something else from WordPress, and I knew the potential, I knew the size. And so when they announced the block editor, I was sold instantly. I kid you not. I was like, let's go. I want to build for this thing. And at the time, I had not written a line of JavaScript in my life. I mean, maybe a little jQuery here and there, a good amount of jQuery, but that is not the same as React.
No.
And build processes and Webpack and all these other things. So I just made it my goal. I just thought if I want to buy into this future and I feel like it's going to win in the end, I have to learn how to write this stuff and I have to learn it. And so that was one of the most obvious places to me, was because we didn't have full site editing yet. It was just blocks. And so it was like, well, I have to build blocks. And what was one of the most annoying things in WordPress at the time? Short codes. They're the worst. Hate them. They're the worst. They mess up your content. They're hard to use. They're the worst. And so I thought, well, if we can make better versions of those in the UI and have kind of clean, neat blocks that you can add to your content. So I use that as a way of learning the kind of building blocks. And back then it was very difficult. And I don't mean just like writing the JavaScript, but Gutenberg was changing by the minute. So I would get something working by the end of the day. By the morning, it was broken. So it was just
complaint, right?
Yeah. It was endless sand, quicksand. But it really helped me learn it and kind of get in there deeply. And so just by kind of getting in there quickly and putting it out there, it was starting to grow pretty quickly, not just because it was like a good tool, but because all the code was out there and I was blogging about it. So I was showing people like, here's how you do this. And then it would break and I would write about this is why it broke. And then I would fix it and show people on GitHub. So it was kind of that educational arc, which is usually the case, showing and telling, that helped it kind of take off.
Especially in that time of Gutenberg where everything was breaking. Education is one of the key things which works a lot in that case. And we also, I get to know Jamie Puttle Press early on when he had 5,000 subscribers and the education was his thing.
Yeah.
And then I think he also paved a lot of good things for WordPress block editor. All right. So thanks for sharing those things, guys. Now moving on to the next part is like getting into the patterns area. So we got to learn about blocks and themes, and then the next evolution was templates and patterns. So why pattern sounds like such a simple thing, right? Does it even need a webinar? It's also is a question. So what do you guys think? Does pattern has that much power to change the way we build websites? Right.
Yeah, when patterns became a thing for real, I was so incredibly happy to see it because, and I mentioned him earlier, Rafal. He used to work for us as a designer at Studio Press. Afterwards, he created this thing called Design Kit, which was basically a Figma system and files where he would put together what we call wireframe patterns, I guess, or components, I guess maybe is what the Figma term for them is. And so he was selling this product that were, hey, here's a bunch of headers. And the idea was for freelancers to buy into the product so that they could very quickly mock up sites for clients. And as he was coming out with that, the idea of WordPress and patterns were coming out. And I'm like, that would be really cool to do the same thing, but doing it with WordPress. So basically, you don't need Figma. You would have basically a library of patterns that were just basic, almost like void of design, just black and white. And so those who follow me know I'm a huge advocate of minimal design. And I just love black and white. And for me, it was very easy to just create a bunch of patterns. And that's what Frost became. It was a theme that had a collection of patterns that allowed you to do the same thing that Rafal's Figma did, which is, go into the editor and add a header, add a hero section, add a call to action, add a pricing table, add a footer, and do it in literally 20 seconds. And when I realized, I think, Mike, you probably early on also sort of saw where this could go. And of course, we're still going, and there's still things that are evolving a little bit slower than it had been previous years. But I just love to design sections of things. I'll see something on a CSS gallery. I'm like, that's a really cool way to do a footer. Now let me do my own interpretation of that layout and then put that in my product.
Nice. Mike, I think with OllieWP, you also, I think with Powder as well, right? Both of them supply pre-built patterns as well, right? Which can help people build complete websites. What type of users do you see will benefit most from leveraging this kind of patterns and pre-built designs?
Yeah, right now it's kind of everyone, which is awesome because, if you think about design, other WordPress plugins like builder tools and things like that, those end up falling to specific personas in WordPress. But
Sure.
things like design's kind of a universal thing. So I might have a teacher building a website for her classroom, and then I also have agency people who are building websites for Fortune 500 people. And they are also using the design assets that I'm providing, and they're taking the Figma file, and they're, so it's kind of cool to see, and it makes a lot of sense because WordPress now is the builder. So we've offloaded that. We don't need that anymore. That's in WordPress now, and so now things like Frost and Powder and Ollie, these are just interfaces for the site editor, and they provide presets and styles and patterns. And so that's also kind of baseline. Now we have this era of like, what can we build into WordPress? And things like patterns, I built a whole business on patterns because I thought this is a really cool way. Again, it's the same thing like I said earlier. I think WordPress is such a great vehicle for delivering design. And things like patterns are great because, like Brian said, you can just grab inspiration from anywhere, build a pattern for it, build a whole page, build a series of pages, build a collection of them, and you have just incredible design. So yeah, I'm seeing all kinds of people using them and for different reasons. Sometimes they're just putting them on the page and they're using them as is. Sometimes they customize them a little bit, change the typography, and you can just do all of that right inside the editor. Super quick, super easy, boom, 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 hit publish, and you're done.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of developers are watching as well. So by the way, we have 181 people watching us right now. So how important it is for a theme being developed in, like, say, 24, 25 and beyond, shipping patterns along with the theme, right? So I think is that one of the requirement while shipping a new theme? Because building a theme back in the day, selling on Envato and all of that, and now it's like completely different. It's like day and night. You don't need to do any PHP code or anything like that. As you said, that's out of the picture now. And how do developers ensure that patterns are flexible enough for people to like reuse them, not very rigid? So I think these are like two questions, but yeah, anyone. So Brian, do you want to go on that?
I'm going to be the first to admit, though I'm sure Mike could follow this up, in saying that on lighter WordPress websites and smaller, marketing presence style websites and blogs and personal things, WordPress now currently shines, and it can be very easily extended to a point. I think what we're seeing, and this is, within the ecosystem, we hear this often. Once you get to a certain point where you have sophisticated requirements that many agencies have, mega menus and whatever, like all kinds of conditional stuff, the current setup of themes is a little harder to sort of play into that. And so classic and traditional PHP themes, everybody knew how to do it and they did it a certain way. And then, so now, we're sort of left with, dare I say, current status of WordPress is better for, let's say, DIY hobbyist designery type people, and developers and heavy programmers, I still think, are having, and understandably, more problems, but I guess they are problems, more just a harder time sort of understanding how to work with the current system. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but it was something I wanted to just kind of clarify that for people like Mike and I, who are basically designers who know how to code, like this is great. And I understand that. And I think you understand that too, right, Mike? And, but you get these other people who are like, oh, I could, develop myself out of a box and program to the moon. They've run into frustrations because there's limitations at that point. Like the editor and block stuff isn't ready for that sort of yet. I hope it gets to that point where just everybody feels empowered by it.
I might just append the question a little bit to make it even more complex. Is that back in the day in Vado and other places, we saw that people were shipping page builders like Bakery and others inside the theme, which added a lot of like functionalities. So they can focus on the design and probably like a few bits of custom functionality. But now, as you said, if you just totally rely on the core, you won't be able to deliver that kind of complex themes. So how did you get past that, Mike, and how can other developers can get past that, or designers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and so I'll touch on what Brian said first, and then I'll go there. So when we first launched Ollie Pro, we weren't sure what kind of users we were going to get because it's a whole new world of WordPress. The economy around block stuff is new, and so we're one of the few people launching a new like business in the space. We weren't sure, so we were surprised to learn very quickly that there were a lot more agency people ready to dive into this world than we thought. And we actually didn't have a plan, a pricing plan like that fit them. We had to create one very quickly because we had people asking about it. And after talking to them, what we're learning is that they see WordPress as it is now, even with some of the limitations, as being able to solve 75-85% of their site building needs. And then they're just building tooling, whatever custom tooling they need to fill in the gaps. And it's for them, you can see the value because they're able to get rid of these dependencies of page builders that come and go, that might not be here next year. They get sold, they get acquired, they get changed, the prices go up, all this other stuff. They can get rid of that dependency and just rely on WordPress as the base. It's not going to change in any major way. It's not going to get any more expensive. And it's only going to get better over time. So they can build on top of this massive platform and just plug in what they need. They can build their own workflows. They can build their own little specialized tools. They can build their own pattern collections. And so as the more people are figuring that out, I think the answer to your question kind of answers itself, is that this is a new way of building. And as soon as you can kind of get the old way out of your head and look at this new platform and say, this is what it is now. How do we move forward from here? How do we build our agency on this? You just start building where you need to, and you iterate, and you can move fast. So for me personally, I leaned fully into full site editing. I didn't do any hybrid stuff. I didn't look back. I just said, I'm building the thing for the people that are going here. And luckily for us and for Brian, the people are here. It's not millions of people yet, but every single day, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't know how many people install WordPress. What are they looking at? They're looking at a block theme. They're looking at full site editing by default. So this is what they're buying into by default. So we're leaning into that. And I think the more people start to try and build those sites, those agency sites, they'll figure out what they need to build around it.
Yeah, and even when somebody asks me, I say that when Microsoft ships Edge and previously Explorer with their operating system, they had a huge advantage, right? Having their own browser and millions of computers. And same thing is what WordPress is having right now. And I know there is also a question from Adam that WordPress still feels like that hasn't evolved that much yet. But obviously this is how ecosystem grow, right? As you said, it's a different way of thinking. I remember back then when reactive JS frameworks were launched, like Angular and others, and I read a great article in Stack Overflow, thinking in Angular. So basically, you have to drop your jQuery thinking and then the completely upside down thinking in another way, right? So that takes time. That's learning curve. and for people to also adopt to that. As you said, agencies have their own workflows, but then they eventually realize, man, this is actually faster and better for me. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. We have crossed 200 people watching us. I think let's take one more. Guys who are listening to us, first of all, thanks for joining in. Those who join later on, I will definitely motivate everybody to ask questions to Brian and Mike. I think we have a great webinar today. So just keep sending your questions. We'll have a quick demo about Ollie and Powder as well. All right, so let's go and see if we can. So do you think, guys, that means this will obviously going to reduce cost and deliver projects faster while keeping the design quality high? But there is one thing which we kind of missed is how do we amend the need of extra functionality? So do you suggest the agencies to build their own blocks or go for some kind of block library? Brian, you want to take it?
Yeah, I'll start on this one. A little bit less on blocks and more on themes. I am a huge advocate of agencies empowering themselves with learning how to build this stuff and then therefore having no dependencies. In fact, I've done several webinars through WP Engine that are basically fork Frost, make it your own theme, how to build your own base theme, and consequently your own pattern library. You can use Frost as a base. I even on one of the webinars says, I will show you how to rename Frost so that you can make this your own agency thing. And I think most people, like hobbyists and DIY and sort of singular people, they're a little bit afraid of learning how to do the thing. They don't have the time to invest. So I think sort of innately, they just want to rely on somebody else's work and trust in that. And that's a perfectly okay model. Understand sort of the sharecropping risk there. But for agencies who have like development teams and all that, it's like, just change it, fork it, build your library of patterns locally so that you as an agency can control sort of how it all goes. And as Mike mentioned earlier, build whether it's, custom block libraries. If you're a sophisticated agency, obviously the recommendation is learn how to build your own and then house your own, because then you can, use those to sort of short the work of developing sites later on, even if it's like completely different customers. So huge advocate of people learning how to build with this stuff, using our tools. I mean, buy Ollie, but download Frost or Powder, like open the files like we did in 2006, learn how it works, and then empower yourself to create a business, to create your agency, and all of that. So,
I mean, did agencies do the same back in the day when we had custom themes? Did they build their own sort of pattern libraries?
Kind of, yeah.
Well, Elementor ruined that one, but
yeah.
Everyone became an Elementor agency, but
and then sales on Envato just went down, right? Because of that.
Yeah.
We also have a theme on Envato still, and obviously we are just leaving it to die on its own.
Naturally, yeah. So, I think there's another part to what Brian is saying that is important, in that if agencies are interested in getting in there and they want to kind of start tooling WordPress towards this new kind of way of site building, it is important to kind of follow some people either on X or wherever to know what is going on in WordPress. Like right now, there's a conversation going on about Nick Diego's popular visibility plugin and getting some of those features into WordPress core. That's a huge deal, actually. Getting those kinds of features are more agency friendly. There's conversations going on about responsive controls. If you're an agency, you're going to need that. You're going to want that. So if you can get in there and see what's going on and advocate for those changes, that makes the platform more friendly to you when you're ready to use it. And so again, following people like Brian, myself, and Nick Diego, these people are kind of constantly talking about this and engaging in these conversations. Brian Cords is another great modern WordPress user and advocate. Follow these people and kind of get in there and advocate for the changes you want to see, because you'd be surprised sometimes how little engagement there is on these tickets. It's like I said earlier, WordPress is used by 1 billion people and a billion websites, and sometimes there's like 5 or 6 people on some of these very important discussions. It's like, are you kidding me? Come on. It's like let's get this thing going.
Yeah, and I have heard a lot of feedback that means whenever we want something, we have to go on tickets, we have to go on that, and then
Yeah.
means asked to contribute per
Yeah.
se. But then, as you said, means there is so less number of voices right now, and if you just put like a comment out, that will be heard, and that will shape the future of what you need in the WordPress. So that's like it's kind of a paradox. Brian, do you have like suggestion of people whom you are following and want people to also follow to learn more about this?
Yeah, Nick Diego, obviously, good friend of ours, both Mike and mine, former colleague also. He's doing great work. Rich Tabor is doing great work. People like Justin Tadlock, sort of always the unsung hero. He's been around WordPress forever, but he's sort of the behind the scenes. Let me teach you the nuts and bolts of how to build a very complex thing, which is always over my head, but not always over the head of other people. And so I always appreciate Justin's sort of ability to find the places where people aren't talking about stuff and it's sort of showcasing how things are done. Obviously, what Mike is doing, Mike and Patrick with Ollie, that is definitely something to follow along and buy. As I joked the last time we talked on one of our calls, I became an Ollie customer about a month or so ago just because I'm like, what is Mike doing? And that's the best way to learn is to see what other people are doing. It's GPL, but like be inspired by it, emulate what they're doing in your own way. I'm trying to think of anybody else kind of off the top of my head.
And that's what people did, right, back in the day as well. And that's what actually WordPress allows you to do inherently. It's open source. You can look at other people's work, but which is kind of impossible. I cannot like download a Shopify theme and then learn from it. It's not, you can learn from the design, but not like the inner workings of it. So that helps a lot. Thank you guys. So so we are moving on to the demo part of the presentation today. Mike, are you okay to present?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the idea is to, again, same thing on the same lines that to learn from these demos, to see what these forward-thinking blog-first themes can do so that others like agencies and developers can adopt their workflow. And if they wanted to do, I will 100% again and again recommend a lot of people to build theme on blog, even though there is less number of audience. But as Mike said, these are like very hardcore audience who are looking for such things. So Mike, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to try to. Google said I might need to restart this to show it, but let's see if it lets me do it here.
Okay. Yeah, you were there, I think.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Okay, so anyone who wants to get started in this or check out Ollie, you can get Ollie for free, the Ollie block theme, totally free. You can kind of get in there. It's very much like Frost and Powder in that it's a minimal theme and we've built kind of around this. And you can download it for free. Just go to download Ollie and you can download it and get started. Or you can just search for Ollie in your WordPress install and get it there. All right, so I'm going to hop in here. I'm going to move kind of quick. I know we're kind of running a little close to time, and we want to see what Brian's up to as well. So can you see this tab I'm in now? Let's see.
Yeah.
New tab. Okay, I'm in WordPress here now.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the Ollie experience is not just a block theme, but like I said, with my other projects is the educational part. And part of that is helping people figure out block themes, full site editing, and helping them along the way. So inside first, before we get to the nuts and bolts of Ollie and the pattern library, we have an Ollie Pro dashboard. And in this dashboard, we've built it to look just like the WordPress site editor, that new view that you see when you're editing your site. And in this screen, you can check out these various videos we have playing. We have a video library where I walk through and show you different parts of folks using Ollie and the WordPress block editor and patterns and all of these things. And we have quick access to the docs. And then we have a theme setup wizard. We're going to be revamping this soon, so I won't go through everything here, but this was just meant to kind of help you get past that first 10, 15, 20 minutes when you're setting up a new site where you're having to set up your colors and your logo and site icon and create pages. We just created a quick walkthrough wizard where you can click through and manually or automatically create these pages. You step over and you can decide what your home page is. This is another setting that confuses people. So we've just figured out a way of instead bringing this to them. And yeah, and that's it. And it just kind of helps you generate the site almost like you see it on the demo, and you can customize it a bit. So then you can hop in and we can check out the cool part of Ollie and Ollie Pro. So here I am, I clicked over, I'm in the site editor, and this is the new full site editing interface, and it's changing all the time. It's getting better all the time. But you can see here, this is the Ollie design, the free Ollie block theme design. This is what you get out of the box. And these patterns are all included in the theme for free. And we come with 3 or 4 different full page layouts, and then all of the patterns included in there. So that's cool. This is what you get out of the box, but let's hop in and take a look at Ollie Pro, because that's really what we've kind of built on the success of Ollie, and we've built kind of a whole business around this design system and design library. So I'm going to hop into a blank page. We'll get to see kind of how quickly we can build out a new page from scratch. So I have here the Ollie pattern library block already added, and I'm going to open that up. And right here, you're seeing the Ollie Pro pattern library interface. It looks very similar to the WordPress pattern library when you go to insert a pattern from your WordPress theme with the sidebar here. But you'll notice we do have some pro features in here. We have a bunch of pro features. Some of those are just simpler interface things, like being able to change the view of your pattern so you can see more or less of them. We have filters where you can favorite patterns and sort these patterns in different ways, and you can also bulk edit. So if you come in here and multi-select, and you can add these to your theme, you can insert them to your page, you can download them, you can favorite them, and do all kinds of cool stuff like that. So even this alone, you know, and being able to search and just have this nice big interface, this is a really big improvement on designing with patterns, because if you're designing with patterns, you're often sifting through patterns, and we have a bunch of them, so you want to be able to quickly find them and work with them. So hopping over to the sidebar, we have a few different pattern collections, and pattern collections in Ollie Pro are they're almost like themes in themselves. And you can see here, they look kind of different than the other ones I was just looking at. And they all have their own different aesthetic, and they have different styles, typography, and but they all kind of work together. So you can take all of these patterns and you can kind of mix and match. And once you put them on the page, they all click together like Legos, so they all look great. But let's hop in and take a look at one of these. So I'm in the startup collection, and this is kind of more of a SaaS kind of pro business style design. And when I clicked that, you can see here we have a live preview of this pattern. So this is a full page pattern, and you can see I can, look at the text here, and I can see what this pattern looks like before I add it to my page. And I'm just live previewing this from the our cloud, and I can click up here and see what it looks like on tablet and mobile. Again, just like saving people time of clicking around and experimenting and just showing them exactly what they're going to get right up front. And I think that's a really cool demonstration of the power of this new technology. Okay, so then over here on the sidebar, we have a few awesome features. You can insert this pattern into the page. You could just copy the blocks. Maybe you want to copy them and put them on another site or another install. You could download this to your theme. Maybe you want to build your own theme and download a dozen patterns and be able to, fork it off and do your own thing. And you can add it to favorites. So your favorites, when you favorite a pattern in this, it will show up in any site that you activate on Ollie Pro. So you can build a collection of favorites, and then you go to build your next site, and then you can quickly access your favorites and get back to building very quickly. So let's go ahead and insert this pattern real quick. Let's just take a look at how it works when it hits the page. And just like that, we've got now a full page design in the editor. I'm going to pop open the sidebar. You can see everything's named really nicely and easy to navigate, easy to customize. We can just move sections around. We can get in here and customize, change images out. And if we want to add a new section, we can just come back in here, open the library again, come into the startup thing, and insert another pattern. And just like that. Like that's it looks easy and seamless and simple, but the magic is really just like, that's what WordPress is now. This is the power of patterns that Vikas was kind of hinting at. Patterns just seem like, why would we even do a webinar on them? Well, because I've just built a whole page in seconds and it looks incredible and it's mobile responsive and it's ready to publish and it's ready to launch your business on. And we didn't have that before, and now we do. It's huge. It's a huge feature. It's a huge new paradigm that we have at our fingertips. So that's it. I'll kind of leave it there because I think that kind of generally shows the power of Ollie Pro with our pattern collections and how they can be all mixed and matched, and also just the power of WordPress. This is where we are now, and I think it's really cool that we can build something that looks this cool in the editor, and it looks like this on the front end. So yeah, thanks for checking it out.
The difference between the admin and the front end view is also crucial. So thanks for clarifying that up. And this looks really cool, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats on that. And these are all core blocks, is it?
Yeah, all core blocks except for Nick Diego's very excellent icon block, which should be in core. I've advocated for it, and anytime anyone asks me, I will tell it, and I will be on any chat that includes conversation about that. Please, let's put it in there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for that. So those who want, I think, a free demo of Ollie, so they can obviously download the free version. But if you actually need a pro version's preview, you can go to Ollie website and get a demo for yourself.
Yeah, you can spin up a InstaWP demo of it and check it out live.
Yeah, thanks for that subtle insight. Thank you, Mike. So, yeah, hey, Brian, please go next.
Well, I hate to say this, but this is going to be severely underwhelming relative to what Mike just showed. And I'm going to blame it on the fact that Mike and Patrick are doing this as like their full-time job, and they've got all the energy in the world and probably 10 years of youth on me at least. So I hopefully will be able to present also. I don't know if I'm going to run into the same problem that Mike thought. Share screen. Allow. Let's see what it does. I want to show the entire screen. Yep. Cool.
Yeah, it's there. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm working on an iMac, so my apologies if I sort of have a square window here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just show a little bit of what's going on with Powder. Again, powderwp.com is the current location of the site, though I've been debating moving that to my personal website. But here you can just sort of see what's going on. If you click on patterns, here are sort of just live versions of all of the patterns that are involved. So you can kind of just surf through without even having to, download or buy the theme. I want to go back into the back end. We are here in the site editor, and I have just a local spin up this blank WordPress install. So this is the front end, very underwhelming and very purposely sort of default by nature. But the reason behind all of this is just to showcase how quickly you can customize a site in full site editing. So I've clicked over to patterns. You can see here, this is the current sort of library of patterns. I've basically created black and white version, so it's easy to sort of insert without even having to change some of the settings. But one of the things I'm really excited, maybe 6.5 or 6, we saw this functionality. If you click over to the header pattern, you can edit it. And we now have the sidebar. And this was a really big deal for me because I love creating headers and footers. And this shows how quickly and easily one can replace the header of their entire website. So if I'm going to go back to front end, you can see now I've done that here. I'm going to do the same with the footer. So let me just back up. And then if you click on footer, then you see all the patterns that have sort of been marked by Powder to be. I'm going to click this one. You'll see this pops up. I'll just open up list view just to sort of give an example. We've got a group, columns. The bottom section is built in a row. I'll save that. And you'll see if I click on the single post, all of a sudden we're starting to get somewhere. One of the cool things about Powder that I will show is I've created a couple of what are called template patterns. And this allows you for single posts and pages, to sort of override the templates. I'll go over here and click on single posts. Actually, that's not what I want to do. I want to add a new template. So if I click on single post and I want to just change the template for all my single posts, I can do that here. And you have this sort of modal now that says, this is the default one. These are the other couple ones that come with the theme. So if I just select that and hit save, now every single post has this new sort of design. And all of a sudden you've seen, just in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, how quickly, even just from a basic blogging standpoint, you got a cool new header. I've got a cool sort of layout for the pages. And then the only other thing I wanted to just showcase, because again, I know we're short on time, is just in the same way Mike did, why the power of patterns. So I've got a blank page here. It's called homepage. I'm going to click on the homepage so we can see all it is the header and the footer. And so in just a few clicks, and this is what I love about WordPress, I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to go and insert another section like this. And then I'm going to, well, let's see. What do we want to do there? Got another white section, another dark section. And then maybe I want to go into the content and, I don't know, create like a block here. I've got 2 blocks on top of each other. So maybe I'll just add a feature and then I'll actually move it up because it's so easy to move up these days. Let's go to that. I'm just going to save this really quickly and we can see all of a sudden you've got, and again, by design, sort of wireframe so that you could just lay things out and then do customization. So for instance, maybe you're building a website for the Kansas City Royals and they don't use black in their website. And what's cool here is using global styles. Close out of here. Get into the editor. If I go into the styles tab and I just want to universally change that black to something different, let me go into the palette. I'm going to just edit this, just arbitrarily pick a blue, and all of a sudden, it's not the greatest blue, but it's the hex code I knew. And all of a sudden, everywhere that was black is now blue. And of course, things of that nature, right? You want to install a font that has nothing to do with the theme. Powder comes with the outfit font. It's one that I have yet to find a better version of. So I'm still hung up on this one. But that's really all I wanted to just showcase. Again, lots of patterns. You can see even in the previews that blue comes through. But the idea here is to just use this to sort of, as I mentioned earlier, wireframe things out and then opinionate based on client needs. So, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. I personally like minimalistic design a lot. And when you said about Frost, means copying and forking it and making it your own, is the philosophy same behind Powder as well?
That's a tricky question, because there was a version of Powder that was available for free. Since then, I've run into some complications regarding the distribution of that. And Powder theme is available on GitHub. It's a GPL license. So to answer your question very shortly, yes, you could take Powder and download it and steal every single thing from it that you want. In fact, it would make me happy if you did. Or if you want to buy and support my work, you could do that too.
Awesome. So yeah, obviously the distribution part is a little bit tricky, but yeah, I wanted to understand the philosophy behind it. Is that made like minimalistic on purpose so that others can like add to it?
Here's a little bit of behind the scenes in the emotional side of things. People like Mike are phenomenal designers. And so I don't want to compete pixel for pixel with people who are highly opinionated and very talented designers. So by default, and because again, this is not my full-time job, this is something I do on the side. This is more for fun and the love of it. I just love the black and white thing, and I want to empower people to quickly build things. I don't have a desire much past that right now. I will continue to opinionate design. I've got a child theme library that I'm planning on ramping up. So I'll do some design that will pair with Powder, but it is very intentionally on purpose, black and white and meant to be a wireframe base.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense actually. Means there is a demand for everything, right? That's why we are in this market. Everybody wants a different kind of experience. If they want an opinionated marketing site or for themselves, go to Ollie, click a button, get that. But then if they want to add on themselves, whatever, and then they go to Powder kind of theme and then design themselves. So that helps a lot. Thanks for sharing that. And now that we have both the demos available, I think my team is Shivanshi is there on the call. So please, Shivanshi, go ahead and share the links to Powder and OllieWP so users can go ahead and check them out. This was an amazing demo, guys. Thanks for presenting them. Now let's to summarize this webinar today. I think we all as an ecosystem agree that patterns will simplifying workflows and enhance design capabilities of agencies through and through. Uh, any last like comments and thoughts on the evolution of WordPress for the next, say, couple of years, and what are the features you are looking forward to, which will help you design better themes? Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just say in general, this new kind of paradigm of full site editing. I know there's a lot of people that are still hesitant to try it, or they just don't think it's ready. I would just encourage you to get in there and actually try to build something with it. If it's just your own personal site, or maybe you just pick your first client site to build, that will kind of, I think, open up your eyes a little bit about how far it is. There is a learning curve though, and I'm honest with everyone about that. And that's because this is not the same WordPress. You have to think about it as a new WordPress in a way. And once you do that and you kind of free your mind of what was, and you can just kind of see where this thing's going, I think it's a refreshing way of building. I honestly do. And it's different, and it kind of helps us throw away some of the junk of the past and kind of build cleaner, faster, quicker, better looking websites. And yeah, I would just encourage you to get in there. And patterns are just a part of it. There's a whole ecosystem around this, but there's a lot of great resources, Frost, Powder, Ollie, and a bunch of other stuff that you can just get started for free. There's no risk to trying it out, except for a time investment. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that and just, make the acknowledgement. I have more people who are probably in the camp of they've tried it and they realized it's all a little further ahead than they thought it was behind, even though you hear some of the louder voices. Oh, it's not ready yet. It doesn't do like what this page builder does. I come in contact with a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it took me this long to figure this out, or to try it, or to whatever. And to be perfectly honest, right now we're at a pretty good levelization period with settings and things like that. I mean, for a while there, it was literally being built mid-flight. And so things were moving all over the place in the editors. And we're kind of in that refinement mode now, where we're working on workflow and some of the UX stuff. And so it has stabilized from in terms of like where the discoverability of all the settings are and stuff like that. So now is a really good time. I think the thing I'm most looking forward to right now with WordPress is getting the full new site admin in place, because I think a lot of people still have a hard time going from old admin to new admin, and where am I and how does this work? And this speaks to Adam's question earlier around sort of the modernization of WordPress. And I think even though it's still probably a little bit behind normal design, things like Webflow and so on, I think the new site admin scheme and how that's going to play out is significantly better than the current one. It's a little bit of a bummer that Saxton's no longer working on that, because he was a very talented guy and he had a lot of ideas and things that were ready to implement. And I was excited about, being able to sort of choose your admin scheme and stuff like that. But I'm still a huge advocate, probably right behind Mike in terms of, being bullish on patterns. And I have every intention of continuing to build for WordPress for quite some time. So.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I always also compare it with what we used to have WordPress back in 2013, right? About 10 years ago. So that was a gold rush era of WordPress. And we are having the same thing all over again in 2024 and beyond, where you can develop block first theme, block first plugins as well. So which adopt to the new site admin. I think that will change the game a lot. So with the new modern UI using interactivity API and all of that, right? So either the legacy, I don't want to call them legacy, traditional plugin vendors, right? So they adopt to the new way of doing it, but that also presents a new opportunity, a huge opportunity for people who want to enter into this market.
Yep.
Yeah, it's huge. Like
We're here for it, right, Mike?
yeah, I mean, I sometimes I just don't get it. I look around and I'm like, what are you all waiting for? I mean, if you're there are very few instances where a whole industry gets a reboot like this. Rare. It's very rare, and it's going to be a successful one. So you can sit around and wait, and then the product market gets flooded, or you can start building something now, learn the ecosystem, learn the products, learn the interface, and start building now. All of the plugins, like Vikas was saying, the traditional plugins need block versions, and there's so many that are just waiting for new solutions, intuitive new solutions built on JavaScript. So I don't know. I would love for everyone to kind of come to our side and start building, and the more we get, the better the ecosystem becomes. So let's do it.
Yeah, I just wanted to address last part is means when I did InstaWP full time. I think just 6 months before I started InstaWP, and I went all into WordPress. That was a very very like crucial decision for me and very difficult one. So I totally understand, Brian, where you're coming from. But yeah, I think we all agree that this is the right time. So let's all of us let's walk towards that. I think I have covered almost everything, and I will definitely invite both of you to add Ollie and Powder into our library. So we are building a library for agencies, partner work sort of areas, where our agencies can explore these cool projects, cool products. And so maybe our team can reach out to you guys. What do you think about that?
Sounds great.
Yep, same.
All right. So with that, let's wrap up. And thank you, both of you, for your valuable time today. And the demos were awesome. I think people learned a lot today, and we crossed, I think, one of our most watched webinar, mostly due to because you connected your Twitter accounts. So that that helped a lot.
See, Twitter's not dead, or X, whatever we call it these days. Still where it's at.
It's not. It's not. I just created a Blue Sky account. I don't go there a lot, but I know the value of it. But we'll see. We are not here to build social platform. We are here to use them. Is what
That's
my
right.
thinking is, right. So thank you guys. Thanks again. Have a great night ahead and great week ahead. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks everybody.
so much. This is awesome.